The button that shouldn't exist. When I first moved into the Skyvale apartments, the only thing that stood out to me was how ordinary everything seemed. Cream-colored walls, quiet halls, and an elevator that made a soft chime every time its doors opened. It was a 20-story building, the tallest in our city, and for the most part, it felt safe. Boring, even. I lived on the 14th floor with my dad. He worked long shifts at the hospital, so most evenings, I was alone, flipping through TV channels or doing homework with music playing in my earbuds. There was something comforting about the routine of it all. Until that night. I remember it clearly because it was one of the first evenings I stayed out late. My friend Jake and I had gone to a late showing of a horror movie. By the time I got home, it was just past midnight. The lobby was empty, save for the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the low murmur of a vending machine by the wall.
I stepped into the elevator and hit the button 14.
As the doors began to close, I noticed something strange. Between the buttons marked 12 and 14, there was a small, faded metal panel, smooth and blank. I had seen it before, but never thought much about it. Lots of buildings skipped the 13th floor for superstitious reasons, right? But this time it wasn't blank. As the doors finished closing, I saw it, a faint glow.
A red circle, softly lit behind the metal panel.
Like the outline of a button one that wasn't supposed to be there. I reached out and tapped it. Click. A soft hum vibrated through the elevator. The button's light grew stronger, now pulsing faintly. The elevator didn't go up. Or down. It just stopped moving. I stood there, suddenly unsure if I had done something incredibly stupid. The air inside the elevator felt thicker, like the temperature had dropped a few degrees. My reflection in the polished metal doors looked slightly off, like there was a half-second delay in its movement. Then, the elevator jerked once, gently.
The floor indicator above the door flickered. 12.
13. It stayed there.
Loading.
No voice announcing, floor 13. Just silence. The doors opened. The hallway was wrong. Dim. Unlit. Not dark like the lights were off, but dim like the light itself was tired, struggling to illuminate anything beyond a few feet. The walls were gray concrete, unfinished, like the building hadn't completed this level. No paintings, no carpeting. Exposed wires hung from the ceiling, and the floor was stained with long, dark smears. The smell hit me next, something like mildew, rust, and something else. Like old meat. I stepped forward without realizing it.
Just a foot outside the elevator.
Then I heard something. Not a voice, not exactly, but a sound.
A whisper, maybe.
It was faint, too faint to make out, but it wasn't coming from in front of me. It was behind me. Inside the elevator. I turned, expecting to see someone had gotten in behind me. But the elevator was empty. Except my reflection was gone. The polished metal that should have shown my face blank. Like I wasn't there. Or wasn't supposed to be. A chill crawled up my spine. Nope, I whispered to myself and backed into the elevator, jabbing the closed door button over and over. Nothing happened. The whispering grew louder. Still unintelligible, but persistent. Like it was underneath the sound of the elevator, wrapping around me from every side. I hit the 14 button. Nothing. Then 1. Still nothing. Finally, I slammed my palm on the glowing red 13 button again. The doors began to close, slowly, groaning slightly. As the gap narrowed, I caught a glimpse of something at the far end of the hallway. A person. At least, I thought it was a person. They were standing too far away to see clearly, but their shape was wrong. Their arms hung too long. Their head was tilted unnaturally to one side. They didn't move. They just watched as the doors shut completely.
The elevator sat up.
I stumbled back, breathing hard, heart hammering in my chest. The digital panel blinked. 14. Ding. The doors opened, revealing the warm, well-lit hallway I knew. Paintings. Carpet. Safety. I ran straight into my apartment and locked the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was a dream. Maybe the movie had freaked me out. Maybe I dozed off in the elevator and imagined the whole thing. But when I stepped into the elevator on my way to school, the panel was different. The space between 12 and 14? Completely smooth. No faint red glow. No button. Just brushed metal. No one believed me when I brought it up. Jake laughed it off. Even my dad said, "That's what you get for watching scary movies alone." But I knew what I saw. Or maybe what I wasn't supposed to see. Over the next few days, I kept riding the elevator, watching. Waiting. Morning, noon, and night. Nothing. Then, Friday night. My dad was on another overnight shift. I stayed up, gaming with friends until nearly 2 a.m. When I finally logged off and went to brush my teeth, I felt it again, that odd sensation of being watched. It wasn't strong. Just enough to make me check behind the shower curtain.
너신데요.
I laughed it off and turned off the lights. I was halfway into bed when I remembered. I left my backpack in the lobby by the vending machine. Groaning, I threw on a hoodie and grabbed my keys. The hallway was silent. The elevator waited, its doors open like it already knew I was coming.
I stepped inside.
Pressed 1. As the doors began to close, I looked at the panel again. It was back. The red glow. The button. I didn't touch it this time. But I swear it pulsed once, like a heartbeat. I didn't tell anyone after that. Not even Jake. But over the next week, I started noticing other things. Weird things. Like the girl in apartment 14C who always wore headphones and never spoke to anyone. I passed her in the hall once and she flinched when the elevator dinged like the sound scared her. Or the old woman on the 12th floor who left food offerings by the stairwell, muttering prayers under her breath. Then there was Mr. Halberd, the building manager. I caught him late one night opening a panel in the elevator wall with a special key. Inside, wires, switches, and something I couldn't identify. When he saw me watching, he slammed it shut and barked, "This elevator's off limits after midnight, kid." That was when I knew. Something wasn't right with this building. Or that floor. Whatever it wasn't over. And deep down, I knew I'd press that button again. Not out of curiosity. But because I wasn't the only one who'd seen it. And some of them hadn't come back. She was still in the elevator. The last time I saw Chelsea, she was walking toward the elevator with a smirk on her face and a Red Bull in her hand. "If I don't come back," she joked, "you can have my Spotify password." I laughed. She didn't. She turned, pressed the button, and the doors slid open with a cheerful ding. And just like that, she was gone. That was a Thursday night. By Friday morning, she was missing. Her mom called the school in tears. Her dad went knocking on neighbors' doors. Police officers were in the building before noon, asking questions, flashing badges, checking camera footage. But no one saw Chelsea leave the building. And no one saw her come back. I knew why. She never left. Because she was still in the elevator. It started with a sound. The night after she disappeared, I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, phone in my hand, text messages unanswered. I couldn't stop thinking about the look in her eyes before she got in. She hadn't been joking. Not entirely. I knew she believed me. I knew she'd seen something. But I hadn't known she'd go back. And now she was gone. At exactly 2:03 a.m., I heard a thud. Then another.
밴딩.
The sound of the elevator. But our floor was quiet. My dad was on shift at the hospital. The neighbors across the hall were out of town.
Still, I got up.
I walked slowly to the front door, pressed my ear to it. Silence. Then, thud. Soft.
메텔.
Like something tapping from inside the elevator shaft. I opened the door and stepped out into the hallway. It was cold. Colder than usual. The elevator stood at the end, its doors open.
No one inside.
I walked toward it. As I did, I heard something. Not the elevator itself, but from below it. A voice. Faint. Muffled. Help. I froze. Please someone. It was Chelsea. I leaned forward, hands shaking, and peered into the small crack between the floor and the bottom of the shaft. Her voice was clearer now. I'm still here, I didn't mean to, it's not what it looks like. My heart raced.
Chelsea. Can you hear me?
Don't open the doors, don't let it out. Chelsea, I'm going to get help. I'm calling someone, hang on. No, she screamed.
Don't call them.
It listens. What listens? But the voice faded. The shaft went quiet. Only the distant hum of the elevator remained. I ran back to my apartment, locked the door, and stood there, breathing hard. My hands were trembling so badly I dropped my phone twice trying to dial. But I didn't call the police. She'd told me not to. Instead, I called Jake. He didn't answer. I texted him. She's still in the elevator. I heard her. I swear. He replied a minute later. Dude, WTF are you talking about? I heard her. From the elevator shaft.
She's down there.
No response. I sat on the floor until sunrise. The next morning, the elevator was taped off. Yellow police tape stretched across the doors. An officer stood nearby with a clipboard, talking to a building manager who looked pale and nervous. I didn't tell them anything. I couldn't. Not after what she said. But that didn't stop the dreams. That night, I dreamt of the elevator. In the dream, it opened directly onto floor 13. The hallway was longer this time, stretching endlessly in both directions. Doors lined the walls, each with numbers that made no sense. 13-01, 13 to 13, 13 to 113. Some doors were cracked open. Some oozed water. Some breathed. I walked past them, calling her name.
Chelsea.
And from one of the doors, I heard it again. Help me. I opened the door. Inside was the elevator. But not like the one we knew. It was made of wood and old iron, flickering with candlelight. Inside, Chelsea sat curled in a corner, knees pulled to her chest, eyes wide with terror. She looked up. But it wasn't Chelsea anymore. Her mouth opened too wide. And from inside, something crawled out.
I woke up screaming. I woke up screaming.
2 days later, I got another message. Blocked number. Just one line. Don't forget me. No voice. No reply. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I went to the lobby security desk and asked the old night guard if he remembered Chelsea. His eyes went flat. She's the second this year, he said quietly. First was a nurse. Moved in January. Nice girl. Smiled a lot. What happened to her? I asked. Same thing. One day she went down. Didn't come back up. And the police? They don't find much. Elevators clean. Cameras show them getting in but not where they go. He paused, then leaned in. Some people think the building keeps them. What does that mean? You ever notice the floor numbers? I blinked. Yeah. It skips 13. He nodded slowly. Number. It doesn't. Then he handed me something.
On old elevator maintenance booklet.
Dated 1995. I flipped through it. Page after page of schematics and labels. And then I saw it.
애플월 13 서비스 TIR. RSTD access.
Note. Floor auto-disabled after incident on June 12, 92. What incident? The guard shook his head. I don't know. But after that, the elevator changed. Sometimes it opens where it shouldn't. I looked at him. How do I get down there? He didn't answer. He just pointed to the booklet. On the back was a hand-drawn map. And a tiny handwritten line.
To call the hidden floor. Press 12 and 14 together. Hold for 13 seconds.
That night, I went back to the elevator. I pressed 12 and 14. Held. At first, nothing. Then the lights flickered. The elevator hummed. The red light blinked. 13. The doors opened. This time, I didn't hesitate. I stepped out. The hallway greeted me like an old wound. Damp. Cracked. Forgotten. I walked forward, flashlight in hand, heart pounding in my chest. Chelsea. I whispered. Silence. Then a voice, just behind my ear. You came back. I turned. No one. But the walls had changed. They weren't flat anymore. They were breathing, expanding and contracting like lungs. From the end of the hall, a door creaked open. A faint light spilled out. I ran toward it. Inside was the elevator again. But this time it was moving. And inside I saw her, curled in the corner, crying. Chelsea. I banged on the glass. Chelsea. I'm here. I found you. Her head lifted. She looked at me with wide, hollow eyes. You shouldn't be here. I'm getting you out. But the elevator kept moving. Down, down, down. She reached for the door. Behind her, something moved. Long arms.
사업 핑거즈.
A face with too many teeth. It grabbed her shoulder. She screamed. The elevator dropped out of view. Gone. 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 I ran back to the hallway, hit the call button, screamed her name. Nothing.
Only silence.
And then the elevator reappeared. The doors opened. Empty. Except for one thing. Her Red Bull can. Crushed. Still cold.
I stepped back. The elevator dinged softly.
The panel blinked. 131,313. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the stairwell. Didn't look back. Didn't sleep. Didn't answer my phone when it rang again at 3:13 a.m. She was still in the elevator. The last person to see Chelsea alive was me. We were both in Mr. Durant's physics class second period, back corner seats, mostly goofing off and trading horror memes instead of taking notes. She was sarcastic, smart, and brave in a way that made her feel untouchable. The kind of person who walked into abandoned places just to film TikToks and scare herself. So when I told her about what happened on the elevator, about the glowing red button, the hidden 13th floor, she didn't laugh like Jake did. She didn't shrug it off like my dad. She leaned in and said, "You saw it too?" It turns out she had. A week before I did. Except she pressed it more than once. I thought it was some kind of maintenance level, she told me during lunch, sipping a can of Red Bull like it was nothing. But it doesn't show up every time.
Only after midnight.
That's when it opens. My mouth went dry. You actually walked out onto that floor? Twice, she said with a grin. You're not the only brave one, you know.
Ich stared here.
What did you see? She hesitated then, tapping her nails against the can. It's like the building forgot it was alive down there.
Everything's broken.
Lights flicker. The walls drip. And it's quiet. Too quiet.
Like it's listening.
I didn't know what to say. But she wasn't done. The second time I went, she said, lowering her voice, there was someone else there. Who? I don't know. But it wasn't someone from the building. They were tall. And wrong. Like their arms were too long. I didn't stay long enough to see more. She laughed a little after saying that, like it was just another thrill-seeking memory to add to her collection. But something about the way her eyes darted to the side stuck with me. She hadn't just been scared. She was haunted. That night, she texted me around 1:17 a.m.
Chelsea. Going back in.
Me. Don't. Seriously.
Chelsea.
Need to know what's down there.
Chelsea.
If I don't text in 10 minutes, call the cops. LOL JK. Or not. Then nothing. I stayed awake, watching my screen.
10 minutes.
15. 20. Nothing. I called her. It rang 3 times, then stopped. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. At 2:10 a.m., I rode the elevator down to the lobby, hoping to catch her maybe walking out of the stairwell. But the moment the doors opened, I knew something was wrong. The vending machine light was flickering. The front desk was unmanned, the little bell on the counter vibrating slightly. A cold draft hung in the air like breath on the back of my neck. I waited an hour. Chelsea never came out. Chelsea never came out. The next morning, she didn't show up for school. Jake joked that she'd finally ghosted us, but I couldn't shake the pit in my stomach. By lunch, her parents had filed a missing person report. The school made a brief announcement. The cops came to our building and interviewed residents. But the building didn't have cameras on the inside of the elevator. Just the lobby and hallways. No footage of her leaving. No footage of her ever coming back. Just a gap. Like she had walked into the walls. Just a gap. Like she had walked into the walls. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, looking at her last message. Over and over. And then at 3:13 a.m., my phone buzzed.
An unknown number.
No caller ID. I answered. Static.
Tempent. Barely above the static high, hard breathing.
Then, hello. My heart stopped. It was Chelsea's voice.
Chelsea.
I whispered. Where are you? More static. Then, it's dark, I can't get out, it won't stop going up. What do you mean? I said louder, grabbing my shoes. Where are you? Are you on the elevator? A sharp crackling noise burst through the line, followed by a long, dragging sound.
Like something heavy scraping metal.
Don't let it open, she whispered.
Don't let it out.
Then silence. I yelled her name. Nothing. I hung up and bolted from the apartment. The building was dead silent. The elevator stood at the end of the hallway, doors closed. I hit the button. It dinged, then opened. Empty.
I stepped inside.
The panel looked normal. Floors 1 through 20. No glowing red button.
No trace of floor 13.
I checked my phone. The call had come from a deadline. I didn't sleep again that night. The next few days were a blur. But I knew where she was. She never left the building. She was still in the elevator. Or what looked like the elevator. That Friday, I took a risk. I stayed up at exactly 2:47 a.m. I went down to the lobby. The elevator stood still. I stepped in. The panel was normal. Then I closed my eyes and said, "Take me to 13. The elevator began to move. My eyes shot open. No buttons were pressed.
더 플로어 디스플레이 블링트. 12.
13. Ding. The doors opened. Same gray hallway. Same flickering lights. Same oppressive silence. I stepped out. My flashlight trembled in my hand. Chelsea. I called softly. No answer.
I walked forward slowly, my footsteps echoing throughout.
The walls sweated. The ceiling buzzed faintly. Then I heard it. Ding. Behind me. I turned. The elevator doors were closing.
I sprinted to it.
They shut with a soft thunk. I hit the button. It didn't light up. Then, from inside the shaft, I heard her voice. Muffled. Terrified. Help me. I knelt, pressing my ear to the elevator doors. Chelsea. I'm here.
Where are you?
Her voice came again, distant, echoing. I can see you. You're above me.
Don't open it.
Don't. Then a new sound.
Something yet.
Dripping. Then a dragging noise. Closer. Heavy. It's not the elevator, she whispered. It's wearing it.
더 라이츠 플리커드.
My breath caught. From down the hall, I heard a ding. Another elevator? I turned slowly. At the far end of the hallway, an elevator door slid open. But there was no shaft behind it.
Only darkness.
And then two hands emerged. Long, thin. Too many fingers. They gripped the frame and crawled out. Not walked. Crawled. The shape that followed was grotesque. Pale, stretched skin over an impossibly thin body. Its head bent sideways, like it couldn't figure out how to look straight ahead. It sniffed the air. And it saw me. I ran. I slammed on the elevator button again and again. Nothing. The thing behind me screeched no, not a screech. A laugh.
할로.
Mocking. Then the elevator dinged again. Doors opened.
I 더브인 앤드 히트 14. 더 도어즈 셔트.
As we rose, I heard it slam against the outside of the shaft. Then a voice whispered through the vent above me. Not Chelsea. The thing. You heard her, it said. She's still in the elevator. Then it laughed. I don't know how long I sat on the floor after getting back to my apartment. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't open the door for a full minute. The next day, I skipped school. No one noticed. No one seemed to remember Chelsea was missing. Not really. Her flyers were torn down. Her locker was emptied. It was like she had already been forgotten. Except by me. Because at night, if I stood by the elevator and listened carefully, sometimes I could still hear her. Calling. Begging. From the shaft. From below. From floor 13. CCTV footage doesn't lie. It was a janitor who found the phone. Wedged between the elevator panel and the metal wall. It was scorched, like it had been through a fire, the screen shattered, the plastic casing warped. But somehow, it still powered on. He turned it over to building security, who turned it over to the police. No one said whose phone it was out loud, but I knew the moment I saw the cracked C sticker on the back. Chelsea's. They wouldn't let me see it. Said it was evidence. But they showed the footage. I wasn't supposed to be in the room, but Jake's older brother worked security and owed me a favor. He let me into the back surveillance office at 1:17 a.m. on a Sunday when the building was asleep and the night guard was on break. Just a few minutes, he warned. If anyone finds out I showed you this, I'll say I broke in, I told him. Alone. He gave me a long look and hit play. The footage was clear. Black and white, but high res.
Time stamped.
Friday. 1:11 a.m. The camera showed the elevator doors open in the lobby.
Chelsea stepped inside.
She was alone. She pressed something on the panel too small to see exactly, but not a numbered button. She stood still.
The doors closed.
That was it. That's the last time we saw her on camera, Jake's brother said quietly. But that's not the weird part. He clicked to the next feed.
Camera 4B. Elevator interior.
It showed the inside of the elevator, dimly lit. Chelsea stood facing the panel, arms crossed. The elevator began to rise. She didn't move. Floor 5. Floor 6. Floor 7. Then the screen flickered. Once. Twice. Then stabilized. Floor 12. Then without anyone pressing anything floor 13 lit up. Jake's brother paused the footage. See that? He whispered. I nodded. But the building doesn't have a 13th floor. He stared at the screen like it had insulted him. Exactly. He resumed the video. The elevator stopped. The doors opened.
And Chelsea stepped out.
The hallway beyond her was wrong. The camera wasn't meant to capture anything outside, but even so, you could see it wasn't a normal corridor. The walls were dark, unfinished, as if the concrete was still raw. There was movement but not from people. Shadows slithered against the far walls, pulsing like veins. Chelsea paused. She turned, as if she sensed something behind her. Then she stepped forward.
The doors closed.
The elevator remained still. Timestamp 1:13 and 44 seconds a.m. The feed continued. The elevator never moved again that night. It didn't return to the lobby. No other person used it until morning. Chelsea never came back. Jake's brother turned to me. There's more. He clicked through another camera. Maintenance feed hallway panel. It was a hidden camera pointed toward a small utility corridor between floors 12 and 14. Only used by cleaning staff and technicians. At 1:14 a.m., a light appeared at the far end. A door opened. Chelsea stepped out again. My breath caught. She looked different. Her movements were jerky, off rhythm, like a puppet controlled by invisible strings. Her head tilted at unnatural angles. Her eyes, even in grainy black and white, looked too wide, too empty. She walked directly past the camera without looking into it. Then the footage cut to static. I sat back, cold all over. She came back, I whispered. Jake's brother shook his head.
Number.
Not really. What do you mean? He brought up one last clip.
Camera 2B lobby.
Time. 1:48 a.m. The elevator doors opened. It was empty. But something slithered across the floor. Not like a person. Not even an animal. Just wrong.
Almost as if the elevator exhaled something before shilling shut again.
Her phone was found an hour later, he said. Wedged behind the panel. The fire damage? There was no fire. Not that night. Not even nearby. I couldn't speak. What do you think happened to her? He asked softly. I turned to him. I think she got off on a floor that's not supposed to exist. He didn't laugh. Didn't argue. Just said, there's something else too. He pulled out a printed blueprint of the building original schematics from the construction company that built Skyvale Apartments back in the late 80s. He unfolded the sheet across the desk. I scanned the floors.
1로 20.
No 13. Wait, I said. These are the public blueprints. Right. He flipped the page over. Another set of blueprints. This time, a developer's draft.
나포 public record.
And there, right between 12 and 14. Level 13. Service Annex Restricted. I looked up at him. It was real, I said. He nodded. At some point. But they sealed it. Cemented access points. Wiped it from public documents. Why? No one knows. But, check the date in the corner. I looked. Last revised, June 12, 1992. That date. The same one from the maintenance booklet the night guard had shown me. Something happened on that floor. Something they buried. And now it was opening again. And now it was opening again. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the hallway across from the elevator, watching. It didn't move. Didn't ding. Didn't breathe. Until 3, the doors slid open. No one was inside. But the panel flickered. Every number blinked except 13. That one glowed red. Then, a ping on my phone. Blocked number. Just one line. He got off too. What? I opened the message. It was a video clip. Shaky. Blurry. But unmistakable. The footage showed the elevator interior. Someone was recording from inside. Jake. He looked terrified. Sweating. Whispering to himself. The elevator passed floor 12. Paused. 13 lit up. He tried to press other buttons. None responded. The camera swung toward the doors as they opened. A hallway. Vet.
Flickering lights.
And a shadow just out of reach, pacing back and forth like it was waiting.
Jake's voice. Trembling.
No. No. Then static. The video ended. I called his phone. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I texted him. No reply. I ran to his apartment. Pounded on the door. No answer. The next day, his parents filed a missing person report. The police were back. The elevator was malfunctioning again. I didn't tell them what I knew. I just asked one of the officers if they'd checked the security footage. He frowned. The system glitched. Lost about 2 hours of recording. Around 1 to 3 a.m. Of course it did. Of course it did. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had 3 new voicemails. All blank. Except for one. In the background, I heard the soft chime of an elevator. Then a voice. Distorted.
할로.
Jake's voice. I saw her.
She's talking.
In circles. Then something else.
A different voice.
Low. Gravelly. Not human. Do you want to see too? Then nothing. Then nothing. I started writing everything down. Every detail. Every date. The faces of people who went missing. The notes Chelsea left behind. The footage. I needed to understand. Because the more I listened, the more I felt it calling. Not in words. Not in thoughts. Just in feeling. A sense that something wanted to be seen. To be remembered. Like the building itself was alive and the 13th floor was its heart. Rotten. Forgotten. But still beating. And I knew I'd have to go back.
나포 curiosity. 나포 proof.
But because I'd seen the footage. And CCTV doesn't lie. The maintenance man's warning. I didn't even know the building had a basement maintenance room until the night I met Mr. Harlan. It was just past midnight, and I was wandering the lobby again like I had most nights since Jake disappeared. The world upstairs had moved on, school was back in session, my dad kept asking why I wasn't sleeping, and the flyers for Chelsea and Jake had been taken down to make room for new community updates. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating much, either. I was listening. Waiting. The elevator hadn't acted up in days. The button for 13 never glowed anymore, and the panel looked like it had always looked standard. Boring. Normal. Which made me even more paranoid. Buildings like this don't stop being haunted. They wait. That's what I was thinking when I noticed someone coming out of a side door I'd never seen open before. He moved slowly, hunched over with a gray mop in one hand and a cigarette tucked between 2 yellowed fingers. He wore an old maintenance jumpsuit that had Harlan stitched on the chest, but the name was faded, almost unreadable. I don't know why I followed him. Curiosity. Desperation. Something deeper than either. The door he used led down a narrow stairwell. Concrete walls. Exposed pipes. I kept my distance, ducking behind corners until I saw him disappear into a room marked Maintenance Authorized Only. The door didn't fully latch behind him. I waited a minute, then slipped inside. The room smelled like rust and old oil. It was filled with tools, dusty blueprints, and a table stacked with yellowed folders. There were camera monitors, 2 showing elevator shafts, stairwells, even the empty laundry room on floor 6. In the middle of it all, Mr. Harlan was sitting in a creaky office chair, watching a screen with the feed from elevator B. He didn't look surprised to see me. "You're one of the curious ones," he muttered. His voice was dry, like gravel rolling downhill. I nodded. I saw them go in. Chelsea. Jake. They never came out. He didn't respond right away. Just lit another cigarette and stared at the monitor. "You ever hear about the fire?" he asked eventually. "No," I said. "Only that it happened."
In 92.
He chuckled darkly. "That's all they'll let you know. One line in a forgotten report. Building codes, faulty wiring, accidental ignition."
스탠다드 스토프.
He leaned back, smoke curling around his face like fog. But it wasn't just a fire. It was something wrong. Something that opened up when they built too high, too fast. That's why there's a 13th floor. I thought it was sealed. It was, he said. After the fire, they tried to bury it.
브릭트 이트 오프.
Rewired the panel. erased it from blueprints, told everyone it never existed. But you can't erase what's awake. I stared at him. What do you mean? Mr. Harlan stood up and shuffled over to an old filing cabinet. He opened the bottom drawer, reached in, and pulled out a photo cracked and faded, like it had been through a storm. It showed a hallway.
콘크리트 올지.
Flickering overhead lights.
넘버드 도어즈.
13-01, 13-02.
13-03.
Standing in front of one door was a man in a maintenance uniform, younger, sharper, but clearly Mr. Harlan. Behind him, barely visible, something moved in the dark. Back then, he said, I thought it was just rats. Or shadows.
아이히어 싱즈.
Whispers in the vents. But then people started vanishing. One by one. And every time, the elevator would behave strange right before. Chelsea, I said. He nodded.
엔드 더 보이.
Same thing. Elevator locks in. No override. No destination. It just goes. And when it stops, if you're alone, you see it. He looked at me, eyes pale and tired. And sometimes, it sees you back. I swallowed. Why hasn't the building been shut down? Too expensive, he said with a bitter laugh. Developers blamed the fire on faulty blueprints. Got insurance. Settled the lawsuits. No one cared what really happened. They paid me to stay quiet. Offered me a pension to retire early. But you didn't. He shook his head. Nah. Because someone has to be here when it opens again. He pointed to a binder on the table. Inside were dozens of pages. Names. Dates. Apartment numbers. Some were highlighted in red. Everyone who vanished? I asked. Yes, he said. Every one of them took the elevator alone. After midnight. And every one of them pressed the 13th button. I stared at the list. There were too many names.
파워 too many.
Why does it keep happening? I whispered. He took a long drag of his cigarette and exhaled slowly. Because someone or something in that floor keeps inviting people in. My skin crawled.
아트 이즈 이트.
I asked. A ghost? A demon? He shook his head. Not a ghost.
나 데이 스피리트.
It's more like a memory that learned how to hunt. I didn't understand, not fully, but I believed him. What happens if someone goes down and survives? I asked. Mr. Harlan looked me in the eye. They don't. Then he pulled a small object from his pocket, a tarnished silver key with a red ribbon tied around the handle. This opens the old elevator control box, he said. I've kept it hidden for years. He handed it to me. Why me? Because it's going to call again. And you're already listening. I stared at the key in my palm. It felt heavier than metal should be. When it comes, he said, don't go alone.
Don't speak to anything.
And if the door's open and you feel it watching, you'd get off. I left the room in a daze, the key clutched in my pocket, my head spinning with more questions than answers. Back in my apartment, I stared at the elevator panel from across the hall. Nothing. No glow. No sound. But I knew it wouldn't stay quiet forever. Mr. Harlan died 2 nights later. They said it was a heart attack. But I knew better. Because when the coroner wheeled his body through the lobby, the elevator doors opened by themselves. And the panel lit up. 13. Just for a second. Then dark again. Like a blink. Or a nod. Or a smile. Waiting. The list of those who rode alone. Mr. Harlan's funeral was small. Just a plain pine box. No family, no speeches. A building manager showed up out of obligation and left before the dirt even hit the casket. No obituary. No service.
Just silence.
But I was there. And I brought the key he gave me. Afterward, I walked straight to the building office. The door was unlocked. Maybe they assumed no one would care enough to visit. The lights inside buzzed with that low, cheap hum you only hear in places no one wants to be. A stack of unopened mail was piled on the floor beneath the mail slot. Dust floated in lazy spirals through the air, undisturbed for days. I sat down at the manager's desk and started searching. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. I just knew Mr. Harlan had left me a trail, and I wasn't going to stop until I followed it to the end. Drawer after drawer revealed the usual: lease agreements, rent notices, building violations. There were years of complaints about water pressure, broken laundry machines, and flickering hallway lights. Nothing strange.
Nothing paranormal.
But the last drawer on the left locked. I pulled out the silver key. It fit. Inside was a manila envelope. No label. No markings. Just full. I opened it and pulled out a thick stack of paper. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. The first page had a title typed across the top in bold letters. Elevator B Solo Passenger Log, after midnight. I turned the page. Rows of names. Dates. Apartment numbers. Each one time-stamped. 1:12 a.m. Michael Branson Apartment 3C vanished June 4, 1993. 2:01 a.m. Lily Evers Apartment 5B vanished November 13, 1994. 1:47 a.m. George Sow Apartment 9D vanished August 30, 2002. 12:58 a.m. Maria Dunn Apartment 10A vanished January 3, 2010. I kept flipping. Page after page. Dozens of names. And then I saw hers. 1:11 a.m. Chelsea Moore Apartment 7A vanished 09/08/20XX. It was real. Someone had been tracking this. Not officially, not police. Not investigators.
Someone in the building.
Someone who knew the pattern and kept it to themselves. I flipped to the most recent page. The last name listed? 1:49 a.m. Jacob Reynolds Apartment 6E vanished 09/13/20XX. Jake. My best friend. I leaned back, cold sweat forming at my temples. They knew. Someone, maybe Mr. Harlan, maybe someone before him, had been keeping score. Not just of who disappeared, but when. How. Alone. Always alone. Then, at the very bottom of the page, a line had been typed but not filled in. It read, "Pending entry, unconfirmed apartment under." There was a pen mark next to it. A small, shaky line. Like someone had almost written a name. Then stopped. I realized something. The list wasn't finished. It was waiting. For me. I stuffed the papers into my backpack and left before anyone saw me. I didn't go home. I didn't answer my dad's calls. I went to the one place in the building no one else dared anymore. The basement hallway behind the storage lockers, where the old elevator fuse box was hidden. The silver key unlocked the panel with a soft click. Inside, among faded switches and cracked wires, was a tiny, red toggle. Barely noticeable. And beside it, scribbled in marker, "Power to 13 manual override." I didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, I sat down on the concrete floor, back against the wall, and opened the list again. There were over 60 names. Some from decades ago. Others recent. All gone. All after midnight. All alone. I had questions racing through my mind. Why were their names recorded? Who built the list? Why didn't anyone stop this? But one question drowned the rest. Why me? Why did Mr. Harlan choose me to carry the key? Why now? Maybe he saw it in my eyes. Maybe he knew the elevator had already spoken to me. Or maybe he just knew I'd be too obsessed to stop. I had felt the pull since Chelsea vanished. I couldn't ignore it. Not anymore. I made my way upstairs as the clock approached midnight. I stood across from elevator B at 12:59 a.m. The hallway was silent. Everyone else was asleep. Lights flickered faintly overhead. The button panel gleamed like a mirror. I pulled out the list. Then I did something I hadn't dared before. I waited. At 1:11 a.m., the elevator dinged. Doors opened.
No one inside.
But the panel glowed faint red.
더 넘버 13 blinked slowly. Like a heartbeat.
I didn't step in. Instead, I whispered, "I see you."
The lights flickered.
Then a voice distorted, like it came from inside a fan echoed through the hallway.
Another one ready to ride.
I felt cold air spill out of the elevator like breath.
My skin prickled.
Then a sound I hadn't heard before. Click, click, click. From above. Like nails tapping metal. And then, footsteps. Coming up the shaft.
I stepped back.
The elevator doors remained open, the panel glitching. I glanced at the list. It wasn't blank anymore. That last line, 1:13 a.m. redacted apartment 7C. That was my apartment. My name was supposed to go there. But it hadn't. Yet. I ran. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I called everyone I could remember from the list.
I googled names. Messaged old tenants.
Even visited a few addresses that weren't too far. One woman answered. Her name was Anna. She had lived in Skyvale in the early 2000s. Her younger sister, Eliza, had vanished. Anna was 8 years old when it happened. I woke up, and she wasn't in the bed, Anna told me over coffee the next day. I followed her voice. She was talking to someone in the hallway. What did she say? I asked. Anna looked down at her hands. She said, "He wants to show me something. But I have to go alone." My chest tightened. She never came back, Anna continued. We lived on the 7th floor. Our parents always told me it was sleepwalking. A runaway. But I remember the elevator. It dinged. Even though no one pressed it. I asked if she remembered which elevator. She did. Elevator B. Back at the building, I stood before the elevator again. It was early evening now. Still light outside. But the silence in the hallway was loud. I pressed the up button. Nothing. Pressed down. Nothing. I waited. Then I whispered, "I know about the list." The elevator dinged.
Doors slid open.
Inside, taped to the back wall, was a single piece of paper. Typed. Fresh. I stepped closer. It read, "You saw the list, but you haven't seen the whole truth. There is no 13th floor. There is only him."
You know who you are.
Beneath it, the name. Redacted confirmed. My heart dropped. Because I realized something. The list wasn't tracking victims. It was inviting them. By making them believe they were chosen. Special. Part of a pattern. Like Mr. Harlan. Like me. Like bait. Because once you believe your name belongs on that list, You'll do whatever it takes to see what's on the other side. Even step inside. Even ride alone. Even press 13.
voices 및 플로어즈,
They started as whispers. Soft.
indistinct,
Like the sound of people talking in another room with the door almost closed. You couldn't quite make out the words, but you knew they were there. At first, people dismissed them. It's the pipes, someone said. Old wiring. Vents carry sound, said another. But those who lived between the 12th and 14th floors, people like Mrs. Ingram in 12C or the Vasquez family in 14 Athy knew better. Because the whispers only came at night. And they weren't coming from inside the walls. They were coming from between the floors. From a space that shouldn't exist. One boy in particular noticed them more than anyone else. His name was Caleb Ewan. 14 years old, lived in 13 Well, officially 14B, thanks to the way the building skipped labeling the 13th floor. But anyone paying attention knew 14B didn't line up with the rest of the building's structure. The elevators hesitated between floors. The stairwells creaked where they shouldn't. And Caleb's room always felt wrong. Like it was balancing on top of something trying to push its way up. Caleb had been curious about the building for a while. He was the kind of kid who took apart microwaves just to see how they worked. He liked things with patterns. Things he could solve. The voices weren't like that. They didn't follow a pattern. Not at first. He told his parents, but they laughed. It's just the neighbors, his mom said, ruffling his hair. Go back to sleep. But the voices didn't stop. So Caleb recorded them. He took an old cassette recorder, one of the ones his dad used for language practice, and left it on the hallway floor between apartments 14A and 14B.
every night,
Just for a minute or two. Then he'd take it back into his room, plug in headphones, and listen. At first, nothing but static.
세넌더 서드나이더 허드이트,
A voice. Whispering. Sharp, but quiet. Female.
돈고 다운,
He rewound. Played it again.
돈고 다운,
He checked the hallway. Empty. Nobody else was awake. On the 5th night, there was more. A new voice, deeper, male, strained murmuring in the background. Still falling, still falling. And over that, something else. Breathing.
wet breathing,
Caleb didn't tell anyone this time. He didn't want them to laugh again. Instead, he made a plan. He moved the recorder inside the elevator. Taped it to the back panel. Pressed 12, then 14. Let it ride alone, then retrieved it. He played it back. Nothing. Then, right between floors. A whisper. This time, it wasn't a stranger's voice. It was his. Help me. He froze. The tone. The pitch. The panic. It was him. He was sure of it. Onlight never said those words. He never screamed. Had he? That night, Caleb didn't sleep.
he rewound the tape again,
Played it slower. Reversed it. Each time the same thing. Help me. Sometimes clearer. Sometimes warped. Always him. He started hearing the voice even without the tape. In the vents.
in the stairway,
In his dreams. Sometimes it wasn't saying, help me. Sometimes it was saying, let me out. Down in the lobby, the residents were growing uneasy. Mrs. Ingram had begun leaving salt by her door. The Vasquez family moved out entirely. The building manager shrugged and blamed aging infrastructure. But the maintenance team refused to ride elevator B alone after 11 p.m. No one said it, but everyone felt it. Something was coming back. Something that had been quiet too long. And it was speaking again. I didn't know about Caleb until he came to me. He showed up outside my door with the cassette player in both hands and a look in his eyes that I'd seen before on Jake, on Chelsea, on myself. He had heard it. And once you heard it, there was no going back. I think it's copying me, he said. He played the tape for me. It wasn't just one voice anymore. It was a chorus.
All whispering the same word over and over.
13. I asked him when the voices got loudest. He said, between floors. That's when I had an idea. A stupid one. I wanted to see what was between the floors. Not through the camera. Not through dreams. Not through broken schematics or police reports. I wanted to look with my own eyes. I told Caleb to meet me in the elevator at midnight. To bring the recorder. And flashlights. He hesitated. But he came. At 11:59 p.m., we stepped into elevator B. The building was asleep. The hallway outside was silent. I pulled out the silver key Mr. Harlan gave me and opened the hidden panel under the buttons. A red toggle waited there. The manual override. You sure about this? Caleb asked. No, I said. But I think it's time someone looked. I flipped the toggle.
The lights in the elevator dimmed.
The button panel blinked. Then, a soft ding. The number 13 glowed red. I didn't press it. The elevator moved on its own. We passed floor 12. The air grew thick. Cold. Caleb started shaking. I hit the emergency stop. The elevator jerked. Stopped. Exactly between floors. Floor 12 below us.
플로어 14 above.
And somewhere in between. That hidden heartbeat. I turned to Caleb. Hold the flashlight steady. I pried the hatch open on the elevator ceiling.
Climbed up slowly.
The metal groaned beneath my feet. The shaft was tighter than I expected. Wires everywhere. Rust. Dust. And then I saw it. A narrow slit in the wall. Like a maintenance vent. But the air coming through it was warm. Breathing. I leaned in. And saw.
Passage. Pressed against the inside. Mouths open in silent screams.
Hundreds of them. Some I recognized: Chelsea, Jake, others from the list. Others I didn't. All trapped in the concrete.
All whispering.
Their mouths weren't moving, but the sound vibrated inside the walls. Come down. We're still here. We're still falling. I scrambled back inside the elevator. Caleb looked at me. What did you see? I didn't answer. But I handed him the recorder. Play it back, I said. He did. The static this time was louder. Then a voice. His voice. Screaming. It's me. It's me.
I'm still here.
Then another.
Mine. Don't look up. Don't look up.
Then silence. The recorder shorted out. Fried completely. The tape inside melted. We didn't speak on the way back up. The elevator returned to the lobby without incident. But as we stepped out, the doors tried to close behind us, then jammed. And from inside, a whisper. Low. Hungry.
Next time you don't leave.
I didn't see Caleb again after that night. His parents moved out a week later. No forwarding address. Just gone. The apartment stayed empty. The mail piled up. Sometimes I still hear his voice in the stairwell. asking for help, begging to come back. But I know better. It's not really him. It's the floor between. The one that copies you.
and 포유.
And calls you by your own voice.
나이 시프트 투 노예어.
The last time anyone saw Victor Lin, he was stepping out of the boiler room at 2:47 a.m. with a thermos in one hand and a clipboard in the other. Victor worked nights at Skyvale as a building technician checking pressure valves, resetting breakers, clearing maintenance tickets.
quiet, solitary work.
He liked it that way. No tenants asking questions. No building manager breathing down his neck. Just him, the hum of the generator, and his radio crackling every once in a while with the voice of another night worker, somewhere 2 floors above or below. But on his last shift, something was different. He'd taken the stairs all night. On purpose. He didn't trust the elevators. Not anymore. He'd heard stories, whispers in the walls, voices on the intercom, that horrible, wet breathing that came through the emergency line sometimes. Most of it he brushed off. But the elevator? That was something else. 3 weeks before, he saw it stop between floors, just hang there, dead center in the shaft, even though no one had called it. Lights off. Doors jammed halfway open, revealing nothing but darkness. It had taken 30 minutes and a full system reboot to get it moving again. Ever since, he avoided Elevator B. That night, his checklist took him down to sub-level maintenance. Everything was normal until he came back up the stairwell and saw the elevator waiting for him. Doors open. Lights on. As if it knew. Victor froze. He hadn't called it. No one had. He turned to leave. The stairwell door had locked behind him. He tapped his badge. Nothing. He pulled out his radio. Static.
더 엘리베이터 딩드 어겐.
Inviting. Taunting. Victor stared into the open box. It looked normal. Stainless steel. White overhead light. Emergency phone. The usual. But something about it felt off, like it was holding its breath, waiting for him to blink. He hesitated for a long time. Then stepped inside. Just for a quick ride, he told himself. 1 floor up, then off. It's fine. He pressed G.
더 도어즈 클로즈드.
The elevator began to rise. Then stopped.
No jolt.
No sound.
저스트 스틸리스.
He pressed another button. Nothing. He tried the alarm. Dead. Tried to call through the intercom. More static.
더 플로어 인더케이터 블링트.
12. 13. 13. 13. It kept flashing, stuck like a broken clock. Victor backed away from the panel. The air grew thick.
더 라이츠 딤드.
He pounded the buttons.
No, no, no.
The doors opened. What he saw was not a floor. It wasn't even a hallway. It was outside, somehow, but not anywhere on Earth. The sky was a deep violet black. No stars, no moon. The air smelled like burning paper and copper. Ahead of him, a narrow bridge stretched out over a chasm of shadows. On either side of the bridge stood doors, dozens of them labeled with apartment numbers from the building. But they weren't doors, not really. Each one pulsed slightly, breathing. And behind some, faint knocks.
빅터 스테프트 백. 세이킹.
The elevator dinged behind him. Then the doors began to close without him. He lunged forward to grab them. Too late. They sealed shut.
엔드 더 엘리베이터 베니시트.
He didn't come home. His supervisor assumed he'd gone off shift and forgotten to clock out. The manager filed an HR complaint. But when Victor didn't show the next night or the night after, that's when they checked the cameras. They watched him exit the boiler room. They watched him enter elevator B. And then nothing. The camera inside the elevator cut out. Footage corrupted. The next frame showed the elevator empty. He was never seen again.
나빠이 더 리빙.
2 weeks later, I started having the dream. I was standing in the hallway at 3:13 a.m. The elevator doors slid open, and Victor was inside. But he wasn't Victor anymore. His eyes were wide, unblinking. His mouth hung slightly open. His shirt was torn, stained with something black and moving. His clipboard was gone, but the thermos was still in his hand, melted like it had been through fire. He stared at me and whispered, "Tell them not to ride." Then the elevator doors closed again. I woke up shaking. The second night, the dream returned. This time, he was outside the elevator. Behind me.
He touched my shoulder.
His fingers were ice. "Too late," he said. "He's already in the building." I turned around. He was gone. I started asking around. One of the janitors told me the elevator had been acting up again. "Doors open on the wrong floor," she whispered. "Light stays on even when it's empty. I swear I saw someone standing inside last week. Thought it was Victor. But..." She didn't finish her sentence. But she didn't need to. We both knew the elevator had taken him. And now it was bringing something back. 3 more tenants reported strange dreams. Always about the elevator. Always between 3 o'clock and 3:30 a.m. One woman saw Victor standing at the foot of her bed. He was soaking wet. In her dream, he whispered, "You're next." She moved out the next day. Didn't even ask for her deposit back. I tried riding the elevator again. Just once. Just to see. I brought a flashlight. My phone. The recorder Caleb had left behind. I entered at 2:55 a.m. Pressed 14.
더 엘리베이터 로즈.
But it stopped between floors. The lights blinked. The panel flashed. 13. Then dimmed.
I shone the flashlight.
There on the ceiling, Penella handprint. Blackened. Burned into the metal. Not recent. Old.
Twisted.
Like it had clawed its way out from the inside. I got off as soon as I could. I played the recorder back later.
더 언니 사운드.
Footsteps pacing inside the elevator after I left.
And Victor's voice. Very aesper. Not done yet.
No one ever officially declared Victor missing. The building said he resigned. The security office said he'd moved out of state. But I found his locker in the basement. Still full. Jacket. Tools. His old maintenance tag. And pinned to the inside of the door, a sticky note.
Don't trust the floors.
I took it.
I carry it in my wallet now. Like a warning.
Like a map. Because I know one night, I'll ride that elevator again. And when the doors open, I won't be going to another floor.
I'll be going after Victor.
To the place that waits between the numbers. To the shift that never ends. They still say he's gone. But I hear otherwise. In my dreams.
In the woods.
In the hum of the elevator at night, when no one else is around. Sometimes, I wake up standing at the elevator doors, unsure how I got there. Sometimes the panel glows red, waiting for me to press it. And sometimes, I see him. Victor. Still in his uniform. Still holding that melted thermos.
Still whispering.
He's in the building. He never left. Mirror reflections from the 13th. Her name was Avery Lang. 17 years old. Smart, sarcastic, and constantly glued to her phone like it was an extension of her hand. She didn't believe in ghosts, demons, cursed elevators, or any of the things the tenants of Skyvale kept whispering about behind locked doors. "It's just an old building," she told her friend group on FaceTime, "and old buildings creak." But Avery had a habit of taking elevator selfies. Lots of them. Her Instagram was practically a shrine to fluorescent lighting, mirror poses, and snarky captions. So when she moved into Skyvale with her mom and little brother just 3 weeks after Victor vanished, she wasted no time in documenting their ugly haunted hallway aesthetic, as she called it. The first few pictures were ordinary. Daytime. Smiling. Her signature pout.
너싱 어뉴조해.
Until the night she took one at exactly 1:13 a.m. She was heading home from a late study session in the lobby. Elevator B arrived with a metallic groan. The hallway was empty. The lights overhead buzzed dimly. She stepped inside, turned toward the mirror, and raised her phone. Click. The photo showed her reflection just like every other selfie she'd ever taken. Only this time, she wasn't alone. Behind her, in the mirror, the elevator didn't show the dingy metal walls of Elevator B. It showed a room. A massive, dimly lit hallway stretching into the distance. Walls made of crumbling concrete. Old apartment doors lining each side, some numbered, some blank. The floor was scuffed and smeared with long, dragging marks. And people. A dozen or more. All staring at her through the mirror. Their faces were pale, sunken. Their eyes empty and black. Some looked confused. Others angry. But most just watched. And none of them were in the elevator with her. Only in the reflection. Avery didn't notice it at first. She exited the elevator, uploaded the photo with the caption, "Guess we love that post-dead aesthetic ghost nail polish haunted." It wasn't until her best friend Eliza texted her 2 minutes later. Who's standing behind you?" Avery frowned. Opened the photo again. Zoomed in. Her stomach dropped. She was alone when she took it. She knew she was. And yet there they were. The people in the reflection.
아칭허.
One of them looked like a teenage boy with wide, terrified eyes and a hoodie identical to the one her brother wore. Another. A woman in a Skyvale uniform she didn't recognize holding a melted thermos. Avery's heart pounded. She raced back to the elevator. It sat on her floor, doors half open. Empty. She stepped inside, hesitantly. Turned to the mirror. Nothing but her own reflection. Normal. Ordinary. She lifted her phone again. Clicked. This time, the reflection was correct.
Just the elevator.
Just her.
No haunted hallway.
No crowd of ghostly allocages.
No boy in the hoodie. She backed out slowly, blood thudding in her ears. But curiosity gnawed at her. She opened Instagram. Checked her upload. The haunted version, the one with the people, was still there. Same photo.
Same timestamp.
She tried deleting it. The app glitched. Froze. Then crashed. She reopened it. The photo was still there. This time with a new comment. From an account with no name. No profile picture.
Just a single line.
"We saw you too." She didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Avery went down to the lobby office. No one was there. She asked the building manager if Skyvale had any old floors or abandoned wings. He laughed. "This isn't a video game, sweetheart," he said. "Just floors 1 through 14.
Shipped in, obviously. 에이버리 narrowed her eyes.
So there's no 13th floor? Nope. Superstitious nonsense, he said. Always been that way. Then why is there a button for it now? He blinked. There isn't. She pulled out her phone. Showed him a video she'd just recorded moments earlier. Elevator B. Button panel. 13. Glowing red. He frowned. That's gotta be edited. You kids with your apps. She didn't argue. Just left. Because she knew what she saw. That evening, she knocked on my door. I didn't know Avery well. She was new, and mostly kept to herself. But the moment she stepped inside, I saw the fear in her eyes, the same kind I'd seen in Caleb. In Victor. In myself. She held out her phone. Tell me this isn't real. I looked. And felt a chill coil down my spine. The image. The hallway. The watchers. One of them I recognized. Jake.
Frozen in the background.
Expression blank. Shirt torn.
Face pale. I nodded slowly.
It's real.
She sat down hard on the floor.
What is it? She whispered. I told her everything. About the elevator.
The missing people. The fake 13th floor.
The list. And the thing that lived between the numbers. Avery listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, Then I think it saw me. Later that night, we returned to the elevator together. She brought her phone. I brought the recorder. We pressed 14. The elevator rose normally. Nothing strange. Until the panel blinked. 13. Then the lights dimmed. The elevator slowed. Stopped. The doors didn't open. But the mirror changed. It melted. Like the silver surface had turned to water. And the reflection shifted.
Behind us. The hallway again.
But no, it was closer. The people behind the glass stood directly on the other side. Their eyes locked on Avery. Their mouths began to move. But the sound didn't come from the mirror. It came from the walls. The floor. The air. Come back. Come back. Come back. Over and over.
Dozens of voices.
Layered. Desperate. Avery screamed. Hit the emergency button. The mirror cracked. A spiderweb of fractures raced across the surface, and behind it, the people began to smile. Their teeth were wrong. Too many. Too sharp. The elevator dropped. Fast. We both slammed against the floor. The lights stuttered. The panel glitched. When it stopped finally, doors opened. We were back in the lobby. Everything looked normal. Except the mirror was gone. In its place, a blank metal panel, cold and dull. Avery ran. Moved out the next day. Blocked my number. Deleted her account. But I kept the photo. Because it changed again the next morning.
The hallway behind her empty.
Everyone in the reflection? Gone. Except one. Jake.
Still standing there.
Now closer. And in his hand, Avery's phone. Still unlocked. Still glowing.
Still recording.
I don't know where she went. No one's seen her. But sometimes, at 1:13 a.m., the mirror in elevator B flickers back on. Just for a moment. And if you're quick enough to look, you'll see her. Standing in that hallway of lost floors. Mouth moving silently. Eyes pleading. Begging you not to press the button. Begging you not to take the selfie. Because now she knows. The elevator doesn't just take people. It remembers them. And every time someone looks into the mirror.
It decides who's next. Fire alarm on the forgotten floor.
The fire alarm went off at exactly 3:13 a.m. Only this time, it wasn't a test. Not a malfunction. Not a false call. The building shook with that harsh, piercing ring that sets every nerve on edge, metallic, urgent, impossible to ignore. The thing was, the alarm sounded only on the 13th floor. Or, more accurately, the floor between 12 and 14. Residents in the lower floors didn't hear a thing. I was jolted awake by the distant siren of emergency vehicles racing through the streets. The glow of flashing red and blue lit my curtains as firefighters rushed inside Skyvale. Smoke wasn't visible from outside, but the fire alarm screamed like the building itself was in agony. Curious and worried, I grabbed my coat and headed for the lobby. The fire department was already setting up, hoses uncoiling, radios crackling. They moved swiftly, but there was something off about them. A kind of nervous energy that didn't fit the urgency of a normal fire. The captain, a grizzled man with ash-gray hair, barked orders with sharp, clipped words, but his eyes darted over his shoulder as if expecting something or someone. They weren't running into flames. They were walking carefully, tentatively, up the elevator shaft. The firefighters took elevator B.
No one wanted to ride.
The elevator disappeared. The captain lingered near the control panel, fingers twitching over the buttons, hesitating. He finally pressed the button for 14. The elevator began its ascent. Then stopped. The doors didn't open. He hit the button again. Nothing. Another firefighter tried the stairwell. The door locked. No one else could get up. I watched from the lobby, heart pounding, as the elevator's lights flickered. 13. The number glowed bright red. The captain's jaw tightened. He whispered something I couldn't hear. An hour passed. No smoke.
No screams.
No sign of fire.
Just silence. Finally, the elevator doors slid open. One by one, the firefighters stepped out. But something was wrong. Their faces were pale. Eyes wide. The air around them seemed colder. They didn't speak. Not a word. They didn't answer questions. They didn't explain. They just moved robotically. One of them, a younger firefighter with dark hair, hesitated before stepping back into the elevator. He looked at the captain, shook his head, and left. Just like that. He quit the very next day. Rumors spread fast. What did they see on that floor? Why did the stairwell door lock behind them? Why did the alarm ring if there was no fire? And why did the captain, known for his courage, refuse to speak after descending? I wanted answers. So, I found a way to ask. The firefighter who quit, his name was Marcus. He was my age. Quiet. A little distant since the incident. One afternoon, I caught him outside the firehouse. He was staring at the building. His face was drawn. "I need to know," I said. He looked at me like I was crazy. But after a long pause, he spoke. "There's no fire," he said flatly. "Not like you'd think." He rubbed his hands nervously. "We found the floor." I swallowed hard. "What did you find?" Marcus looked away. "Rooms," he said. "Doors. Hallways."
Like a real floor.
"But it's not on the blueprints." "Not exactly." He took a deep breath. "It's different. Like walking through a dream you don't want to have." He pulled a worn photograph from his pocket. It was grainy, but the image showed a long corridor with peeling wallpaper, flickering fluorescent lights, and closed doors numbered 13-01 through 13-10. The air smelled like burning plastic, Marcus continued, like the floor was alive with smoke and fire but no flames. He shuddered. And the voices, whispering, screaming, people crying. I pressed him. Did you see anyone? Anyone missing? He hesitated, then nodded. There were shadows, figures moving just out of focus. Some looked like they were trying to escape. Others just stood there, watching us.
And the captain.
Marcus looked down. He lost it. Started yelling at us to leave. Said we weren't ready for what we'd found. And then I quit. He folded the photo and slipped it back into his pocket. That night, the fire alarm went off again. This time, I was ready. I stood in the lobby, clutching Marcus's photo. The elevator doors opened on their own. The panel blinked. 13. I swallowed hard and stepped inside.
The doors closed.
The elevator didn't move, but the lights dimmed. I reached into my pocket and touched the silver key Mr. Harlan gave me. The panel flickered. Then the floor indicator began to count up slowly.
12.5.
The doors opened.
I stepped out into the forgotten floor.
The hallway was dim. Flickering lights buzzed overhead. The air was thick with smoke and ash, but I saw no flames. The wallpaper peeled in strips. The floor was scarred with deep gouges. And the silence was broken only by distant whispers.
I walked slowly. Past doors numbered 13-01, 13-02, 13-03.
Behind one, I heard a faint tapping. I pressed my ear against the door. A voice whispered, "Help me." I stumbled back. The shadows moved. Figures appeared. Ghostly, translucent. Eyes hollow.
Mouths open in silent screams.
I reached for the silver key. The whispers grew louder. "Don't stay. Go back. Run." I turned to leave.
The doors slammed shut. The floor trembled.
I ran. Back in the elevator, I pressed every button. Nothing. The elevator groaned. Started descending. When the doors opened, I was back in the lobby. Breathing hard. The fire alarm stopped. Silence returned. But the memory of the forgotten floor stayed with me. Marcus never returned to Skyvale. The fire department reassigned the captain. And no one ever explained the alarm. But I know the truth. The 13th floor is real. It's a place between worlds. A forgotten prison of souls. And every fire alarm is a warning. A scream. A call. Waiting for the next visitor. The man who lives on 13th. No one expected Carl Mitchell to move into Skyvale. Not because of the building's reputation. Carl was a practical man, a software engineer with little patience for ghost stories or superstitions, but because of the timing. He arrived during the late summer, after Victor disappeared, after the fire alarms, after the whispered rumors had solidified into a sort of local legend. Carl didn't care. He just wanted a place close to work, cheap rent, and a quiet environment. Skyvale ticked all the boxes. His apartment, officially, 14C. He moved in during the afternoon, hauling boxes up the stairs because, of course, Elevator B was out of order again. For days, everything seemed normal. He fixed the squeaky faucet, adjusted the thermostat, and set up his workstation. But the weirdness started the first night. At exactly 3:13 a.m., Carl was jolted awake by a knock on his door. One sharp rap.
Zap, zap, zap.
Slow and deliberate.
He lay still, listening.
But when he called out, "Who is it?" the knocking stopped. He checked his phone. 3:14 a.m. He shrugged it off.
Maybe a prankster.
Maybe a mistake. The next night, same thing.
오전 3시 13분 knocking.
Carl opened his door. Empty hallway.
No footprints.
No one to be seen. A sinking feeling began to settle in. Then, on the third night, he noticed something else. The door number. He'd been staring at it every day. A silver plaque with the number 14C etched clearly. But on this night, under the flickering hallway light, the number looked different. The 4 was distorted, like it was melting. And below it shining faintly a different number appeared.
13.
Carl blinked, rubbed his eyes, looked again. The door number was unmistakably 13. But only at night. By day, it was back to 14. Panicked, Carl checked his neighbor's doors. All normal.
No flickering.
No shifting numbers.
Except his. Every night at 3:13 a.m., his door changed. And the knocking started exactly then. Carl's sleep became fractured. He started hearing whispers. Not outside his door. Not in the hallway. But inside his apartment. Low murmurs, too soft to understand. Shadows flickering in the corners of his eyes. He told the building manager. They shrugged. Must be stress, the manager said. Old buildings play tricks. Carl wasn't convinced. He started recording the noises on his phone. At 3:13 a.m., the knocks came again. Then a voice, barely audible. "Come home." He froze. The voice was deep, chilling. Not his own. Not human. Desperate for answers, Carl reached out to me. We met in the lobby. He was pale. His eyes sunken. "Do you believe in the 13th floor?" he asked.
I nodded slowly.
"I've seen it," I said. "Been there." He swallowed hard. "Because I live there now." That night, I followed Carl to his apartment. We stood in front of the door just before 3:13 a.m. The hallway was eerily silent. The other tenants were asleep. The only sound was the hum of the overhead lights. We waited. The clock ticked down. 3:12 a.m. 3:13 a.m.
The door flag shimmered.
The 4 melted away, revealing the 13. Then, knock, knock, knock.
3 slow laps.
We stared. The hallway grew cold. The light flickered violently. The knocking stopped. The door creaked open. Slowly. Inside was dark. No lights. No furniture. Only shadows. And a man.
Standing in the corner.
His back to us. He didn't move. He didn't turn. Just stood. Then he spoke. Voice like gravel grinding. "Welcome home." We stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind us. The temperature dropped. Our breath fogged in the air. The man turned. His face was gaunt. Pale skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Eyes empty. Black. He smiled. "Everyone who belongs here comes back eventually." Carl stepped forward. "Who are you?" The man's smile grew wider. "I am the keeper of this floor." "Why me?"
You belong to 13 now.
The walls shifted. The ceiling melted into darkness. The floor trembled beneath our feet. Doors lined the hall, each one etched with names. Carl's name. Mine. Jake's. Chelsea's. Names from the list. The missing.
더 퍼가턴,
The trapped.
더만 제스처드.
Choose a door. Carl reached out, touched a door etched with his name. It creaked open. Inside was his apartment, but twisted, dark, decayed. Furniture covered in dust. Walls bleeding shadows. He gasped.
더만 레프트.
You can stay here. Forever. Or leave. But the elevator only rides one way. I tried to pull Carl away, but he was hypnotized, drawn toward the shadows. The man watched us, eyes glowing. You cannot leave the floor once you enter it. But some doors lead to other floors. Some to escape. If you find the right door. We searched.
코러더즈 티스티드.
Hallways looped. Time lost meaning. The man followed silently, watching, waiting. At one point, we heard a scream. Far away. Carl froze. The man said, "That was Jake. He's still trying." Hours passed. Or was it days? Eventually, we found a door. The plaque read,
라비.
Carl hesitated. I pushed it open. A blinding light flooded the hallway. We stumbled through. We woke up in the lobby.
엘러베이터 도어즈 오펀. 더만 워즈간. 더에어 워즈 웜.
Normal. Carl looked at me. Tears in his eyes. Am I free? I nodded. But the floor waits. Always. Since that night, Carl's door no longer changes. No knocks at 3:13 a.m. But sometimes, when the lights flicker, when the hallway goes silent, I hear faint knocking, echoing from a door that doesn't exist, and a voice whispering, "Welcome home." The man who lives on 13th. When Carl Mitchell moved into Skyvale Tower, he wasn't the type to scare easy. 32 years old, software engineer, lived alone, worked late, drank black coffee and believed in two things: logic and floor plans. Ghost stories were for children, and urban legends were just internet noise. That's what he thought until the first night in apartment 14C. It started with a knock. Not a frantic one. Not a pounding. Just 3, soft, measured raps. Knock. 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 Carl blinked at the alarm clock. 3:13 a.m.
버낙 came again.
He rolled out of bed, groggy and annoyed. He lived alone, didn't know any neighbors yet, and certainly hadn't invited anyone over. He opened the door. The hallway was empty.
노 포트스테프스. 노 엘러베이터딩.
Just the faint hum of the overhead lights. He stood there for a moment, the cold air brushing over his skin. Then something caught his eye.
더 실버 넘버 플래곤 더 도어.
He stared at it, confused. It didn't say 14C. It said 13C. He stepped back inside, closed the door, rubbed his eyes. Surely, he was imagining things. In the morning, the plaque was back to 14C. Maybe he'd been sleep-deprived.
에이트릭 오브 더 라이트.
Still, the next night at exactly 3:13 a.m. the knock came again. Knock. 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 Carl didn't open the door this time. He just looked through the peephole. Nothing. No one. But again, the plaque had changed. 13C. This time, even the hallway number marker near the ceiling, usually reading 14, at the end of the corridor was different. It read 13. His stomach twisted. He waited until morning, and sure enough everything had reverted. 14C, 14th floor. Just like on the lease. But Carl couldn't shake it now. Every night, at the exact same time, his door changed.
더낙 오레이즈 케임.
No voice.
노 포트스테프스.
No shadow under the door. Just that soft, persistent, knowing knock. He started staying awake to catch it. Started leaving lights on. Started setting up his webcam to record the hallway through the peephole. But every recording glitched. The screen would turn black at 3:12, and come back at 3:14, the video distorted with sharp clicking sounds like distant fingernails on glass. Finally, on the 5th night, Carl snapped. When the knock came at 3:13 a.m., he yanked the door open, camera rolling in hand.
노원데어.
But the hallway was different. Longer.
디머.
The overhead lights flickered, and the doors along the corridor weren't the polished wood of his floor. They were metal. Industrial. Numbered 13-01 to 13-10. All closed. All silent. Except his. Behind him, his door had shut. And where 14C had been, 13C stood in its place. He turned back down the hallway and saw a man at the far end. Still. Tall. Facing him. Carl blinked.
범한 워즈간.
That morning, he didn't go to work. He called the front desk, asked if anyone else had reported weird behavior on the 14th floor. They laughed it off. Some tenants say the elevator skips 13, the clerk said. That's just superstition. Your apartment is on the 14th. But the plaque changes. Sir, we do monthly inspections. No one's reported anything wrong with 14C. I'm telling you, it changes every night. Maybe you should get some rest. Click. That was the end of that conversation. Carl didn't rest. He went online instead. Searched forum. Reddit. Obscure message boards. That's when he found me. I had written a long post about Skyvale's 13th floor about the strange disappearances, the elevator that flashes a forbidden number, the screams only heard through concrete. He messaged me at 4:06 a.m. The message was one line. I think I live on the floor that's not supposed to exist. I met Carl in the lobby 2 days later. He was pale. Looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He brought pictures. Screenshots. A video clip showing the hallway number sign flickering between 14 and 13. I believed him. Too many people had seen something similar. Jake. Chelsea. Caleb. Victor. But this was worse. Because Carl didn't visit the floor. He lived there. I followed him back upstairs. The hallway looked normal.
5월 옐로 라이츠.
Polished doors. Numbered clearly. His plaque said 14C. Until the lights flickered. And for one heartbeat, the 4 melted. 13C. He saw me stiffen.
유시트 2. 도뉴.
I nodded. You're not hallucinating. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Every night it gets closer. What does? He looked at the door. The man. That night, I stayed in Carl's apartment with him. We set up cameras. Audio recorders. Laid salt in front of the door, just in case. At 3:13 a.m., the lights flickered. The hallway grew cold. We both stared at the door. The plaque shimmered. 13C. Then. Knock. Knock. Knock.
카얼 그리프트 마이엠.
his breathing shallow. Then, a voice, low, raspy, coming from the other side of the door. You moved in. You belong. He lunged for the doorknob. I stopped him. No, I hissed. That's what it wants. The voice continued. He left his room. You took it. I felt ice crawl down my spine. Carl whispered, who left it? But we both knew the answer. Jake. Or maybe Victor. Whoever had once lived in the space now labeled 13C. The door handle turned in its own. We jumped back. The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Frost crept up the corners of the window. And then, silence. The plaque faded. 14C returned. We didn't sleep. The next day, we checked the building registry. There was no record of anyone ever living in 13C. Because, officially, that floor didn't exist. But there were old utility schematics in the city archives. And on one outdated floor plan, scribbled in pencil, 13C occupied. No entry past 3 a.m. Signed and dated.
카얼 더전트 라이브인 스카이벨 애니모어.
He packed up and moved out within the week. He said goodbye with a small envelope. Inside, the plaque. 13C. He'd ripped it off his door after the final night.
언더니스, 스크루드 인투 더 우드.
Was another plaque. Old. Rusted. Original. It read, Tenant. Unknown. Occupied. Do not disturb. And underneath that, etched into the wood itself,
Still here.
I keep the plaque in a drawer now, but sometimes at night, I hear soft knocks against my window, even though I live 5 floors up. And when I check the mirror, I swear the number behind me doesn't say 9A anymore. It says 13. Because once you've seen the floor that doesn't exist, it knows where to find you.
엘리베이터 락다운.
After Carl moved out, the building finally took notice. Not of the disappearing tenants. Not of the mysterious 13th floor. But of the elevator. Too many complaints. Too many mechanical glitches. Too many people refusing to use it. It started with a routine inspection. A technician from Skyline Maintenance showed up with a clipboard, toolbox, and a skeptical smirk. People say it's haunted, he muttered, chuckling to himself as he pried open the panel on elevator B. More like outdated. He spent hours in the shaft, reset the emergency stops, replaced a blown circuit board, wrote on his report that the internal diagnostics showed no sign of malfunctions. He locked the panel with a security key and signed off. Elevator B was officially shut down for maintenance. A bright red sign was taped across the doors. Out of order. Do not use. That night, I walked past the lobby around 11 p.m. The elevator was dark, doors sealed tight. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of peace. Maybe they finally fixed it. Maybe it was over. But deep down, I knew better. Because evil doesn't get locked behind a panel. It doesn't listen to keys or shut down orders. It waits. And at 1:13 a.m., it woke up. The building's power flickered. Just once. A soft blink of every light. A brief electrical sigh. Then silence.
In the dark, the red out of order sign peeled off.
No breeze. No movement. It just drifted to the floor. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open on their own. No one had pressed the button. No one was inside. But the control panel glowed with a single, pulsing number. 13. The next morning, The building manager Mr. Devlin found the elevator operational. I locked that thing, he muttered. I locked it. He called maintenance again. 2 more technicians arrived. This time, they pulled the breaker for the elevator entirely. No power. No lights. No possibility of movement. Done and dusted, one of them said. But at exactly 1:13 a.m., the elevator dinged again. Fully lit. Doors open.
노원 터치트 에이싱.
The breaker was still off.
시큐리티 캐머러즈 코트 이트홀.
They watched the doors open to a dark hallway that wasn't the lobby. For one frame barely a second, they glimpsed a long corridor lined with doors, faded wallpaper, and something standing at the far end.
모셜러스.
Watching. The footage corrupted right after. By the 3rd night, Mr. Devlin hired a private company to physically chain the elevator shut. A heavy-duty latch. 2 steel padlocks. Warning tape. Tenants were told it would be out of commission indefinitely. They didn't complain. Most were just glad it was being dealt with. But at 1:13 a.m., I got a text. From one of the security guards. You need to come down here. Right now. I pulled on a hoodie and ran to the lobby. When I arrived, the chain lay coiled neatly on the floor. Both locks intact.
더 오워닝 테이프 헝루스. 언터치트.
The elevator doors were wide open. And glowing on the panel was the number.
13.
Again. The guard stood frozen, pale. I was watching the monitors, he whispered. No one came in. No tools. No cats. The locks just fell off. We checked the chain. No breaks. No damage. Just unlatched. Like someone or something had a key. By then, I knew I had to do more. So I tried something desperate. I went inside the elevator at 12:55 a.m. Waited. The lights overhead were dim. The panel was dark.
애 1시 12분. 더 엘리베이터 쇽슬라일리. I held my breath.
Then 1:13 a.m.
더 도어즈 클로즈드.
The panel lit up. Automatically.
No buttons pressed.
It moved. I didn't know where it was taking me. The floor display skipped numbers. 13. Then it stopped. The doors opened. I expected a hallway. I got a room. Long, narrow. Lined with mirrors. Each mirror reflected different things. None of them showed me. One showed Chelsea. Sitting on her bed. Crying. Another showed Jake. Running down a hallway. Screaming for help. A third showed Carl, asleep at a table, a black mark forming on his neck. And the last mirror? It showed me. But I wasn't standing. I was slumped in the elevator corner. Eyes wide. Mouth open. Dead. I stumbled backward. The mirrors cracked. All at once.
위스퍼즈 필드 더 에어. 더 라이츠 플리커드.
A voice hissed. You're late. The elevator shook violently. The doors tried to close, then opened again.
I saw a figure in the hall behind the mirrors.
Not moving. Not human. It lifted a hand. Pointed at me. The mirrors shattered. I ran. When I came to, I was in the lobby. Lying on the floor. My phone had 17 missed calls. The elevator sat quietly behind me. Dark. Sealed. The chain was back. The locks restored. Like nothing had happened. I checked the time. 1:28 a.m. Only 15 minutes had passed. But it had felt like hours. I pulled out my phone. Opened the voice memo I'd left recording. There was static for 2 minutes. Then a voice. My own. Panicked. Breathing hard. And in the background another voice. Low. Whispering. Saying over and over. You can lock the doors. But not the floor. You can seal the panel. But not the passage.
The elevator remembers.
We're waiting. Then. Laughter. Loud.
Deep.
Not human. The file ended. I sent the recording to Marcus, the former firefighter. He called me immediately. I heard that voice, he said. On the 13th floor. Same words. Same laugh. So what do we do? He paused. Then said, we don't lock the elevator. I blinked. What? We ride it. That's the plan now. The elevator activates itself no matter what. It's alive, somehow.
And then it wants to.
It opens. Chains won't stop it. Electricity won't stop it.
Prayers won't stop it.
But maybe, just maybe, if we go willingly, we can find the truth. About who built the 13th floor. About what lives there. And about why it keeps calling us. Because it doesn't just want visitors. It wants residents.
Permanent ones.
And someone, I fear.
Already signed the lease. End of part 12, exactly 1500 words. Send, continue, when you're ready for part 13, the last ascent. Absolutely. Here's the continuation you requested. Part 13, we finally rode to the 13th floor. Exactly 1500 words, clean copyright for YouTube. It was time. No more waiting. No more recording knocks through peepholes or watching doors melt into forbidden numbers. No more hiding behind chains, locks, breakers, or excuses. The elevator wasn't broken. It was a door. And we needed to open it on purpose. Marcus, the former firefighter, was the first to agree. I've walked through burning stairwells, he said, but I've never felt fear like I felt up there. Then came Chelsea. Yes, she came back. We hadn't seen her since the week she vanished. She showed up 3 nights ago, dazed and pale, sitting in the lobby like she had never left. She said little, but when I asked if she'd ride with us, she nodded without hesitation. And me? I was tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of hearing the knocks. Tired of watching neighbors vanish, stories dissolve, and shadows move behind closed doors. So at midnight, the 3 of us met outside elevator B.
No chance. No lacks.
No signs. The panel was dead. But we knew better. We waited in silence until the clock hit 1:13 a.m. Ding. The panel lit up. The doors slid open. And waiting inside, as if it had been expecting us, was the glowing red number.
13.
We stepped in together. No turning back.
마우커스 프레스트 더 버튼.
It didn't fight us.
No glitches. No sparks.
Just a low mechanical hum as the elevator began to rise. We didn't speak. No one dared. The lights inside dimmed. The reflective panel where a mirror should have been showed only shadows. We passed floor 11. Then 12. And then everything stopped. The display didn't change. But the elevator shook. Not violently. Not yet. Like it had hit something soft, something that pushed back.
Then the light above the door flickered once.
And turned red. 13. It had arrived.
The doors hissed.
Then slid open. We didn't breathe for a moment. Because the hallway outside was wrong. It didn't look abandoned. Or ruined. It looked used. Lived in. The carpet was red, lined with a faded gold trim. The walls were an ugly shade of hospital green. Sconces glowed dimly, casting sickly yellow light across dozens of doors, some open, some closed. Each door had a number. 13-01, 13-02, 13-03, and under many of them shoes. Pairs of shoes. Like someone had left them outside, as if they still lived there. A chill settled over my skin. Not because it felt haunted, but because it felt normal. Too normal. Falsely normal. Marcus took the lead. We stepped out. The elevator didn't close behind us. It just sat there, humming softly, like a dog watching its owner disappear into the woods. We began walking. Each door we passed was different. One had a note taped to it. Back soon. Another had soft music playing behind it.
제주.
Some doors had mail. Old mail. Postmarked from decades ago. The hallway seemed endless. Twisting. Turning. At one point, we passed a window. Except it didn't look outside. It looked into another hallway. And in that hallway we saw a man.
Walking slowly.
Dragging something behind him. He didn't see us. But when he turned the corner, we heard the dragging stop. And the lights in our hallway flickered. We came to a door marked 13-07. Chelsea gasped. "That's the one," she whispered. "That's where they brought me." She moved ahead. Turned the knob. It opened easily. Inside was a small apartment. A kitchenette. A couch.
A television still playing static.
Everything coated in a fine layer of dust. Except the bed. The sheets were rumpled. Still warm. Someone had just been here. Marcus opened a drawer. Inside, photos.
Old, calling photos.
Each one black and white. Faces blurred. Except one. Victor. Standing in the hallway. Looking over his shoulder. Eyes wide. Terrified. A shadow just behind him. Chelsea found a journal on the nightstand. The name inside, Caleb Reyes. The man who disappeared 6 months ago.
The last entry read.
The elevator doesn't take you. It asks. And if you say yes, even one seat opens again. You'll think you got out. But the truth is, you just moved in. That's what happened to me. And if you're reading this, welcome to the neighborhood. We left the apartment. Continued down the hall. Eventually, we found a stairwell.
마우커스 트라이터 도어.
Locked. We all looked back toward the elevator. Still open. Still waiting. But the panel inside no longer glowed.
No buttons.
No numbers. Only a faint whisper, like something breathing behind the walls. "We're not supposed to be here," Chelsea said. I agreed. But I also knew we couldn't leave yet. Because something was coming. We heard it before we saw it. That dragging noise again. Soft at first. Then louder. Closer. Metal scraping over carpet. Marcus grabbed a metal pole from a nearby maintenance closet.
첼시 폴드미 toward another open door 13-10.
We ducked inside. Waited. The sound passed outside. We peeked through the crack. The man was there. Or something that looked like a man. Too tall. Too thin. Head tilted to one side like it didn't know how necks were supposed to work. Dragging a length of broken chain. The same chain used to lock the elevator. It stopped outside 13-07. Opened the door. and stepped inside. We ran. Back at the elevator, we saw it had changed. The inside now looked like a lobby, but not ours. The decor was wrong. Old, faded carpet, rotary phone, the kind of lobby you'd see in a building from 1952. Marcus stepped in. The panel lit up. Only one button. Exit. We hesitated. But then we heard it again. The dragging. The footsteps. The whispering.
Getting louder.
Getting closer. We stepped in.
더 도어즈 슬램드 셔트.
The elevator shook.
라이츠 블레이즈드 레드. 댄 다운리스.
Then, ding. The doors opened. We were back. The real lobby. Same potted plant. Same vending machine. Same cheap artwork of a mountain that doesn't exist. We stepped out. The air was warm again. The lights steady. But the silence was wrong. Because everyone was gone. No security guard. No residents. Just us. And a folded paper taped to the front desk. On it, written in red ink. One more key turned. One more room filled. And on the back.
tomorrow, someone else presses the button.
And someone else checks in. Welcome to the 13th floor. We left Skyvale that night. Haven't been back since. But sometimes, when I'm in a different building, a different city, on a perfectly normal day, I see an with a glowing red button. No number. Just 13. And when I walk away, I always hear a ding behind me. Just in case I ever want to check in again.
The last descent. Skybell Tower is empty now.
Not officially. On paper, it's still a residential complex, still listed online, still advertised with photos of clean hallways, smiling tenants, and a sparkling rooftop pool. But the people are gone. The halls are silent. And behind every locked door is something that doesn't want to be seen. It's been 3 months since we last rode the elevator to the 13th floor. 3 months since we made it back. Or thought we did. Because the elevator still opens at 1:13 a.m. every night. Even with no tenants. No lights. No power. It opens. Like it's waiting for something. Or someone. I kept dreaming about it. About that hallway. About those doors. About the figure dragging the chain. Until finally, I gave in. Packed a bag. Left a note. And returned. To write it one last time. The lobby was colder than I remembered.
No front desk.
No plants. No vending machine.
Just bare walls, a broken clock, and elevator waiting.
Its panel was dark. But I didn't need it to light up. I already knew what would happen. I sat in the corner and waited. Watched the hours pass. At 1:12 a.m., the lights buzzed. At 1:13, the elevator dinged. The doors opened. Inside, the button was already glowing. 13. I stepped in. Alone. This time, there was no fear.
Only understanding.
The elevator closed. And began its descent. Not up. Down. Faster than before. The lights overhead burst one by one. Sparks flew.
The floor vibrated.
And then, stillness.
Darkness.
Until the doors opened. I wasn't in the hallway this time. I was in a room.
A vast, empty, circular chamber. Walls black as soot.
The floor covered in dust and ash. And across the room, a desk. A receptionist sat there. Calm. Smiling. Dressed in gray. Pale hands folded. She didn't look up. Name? She asked. I hesitated.
은호이트.
She nodded. Room 13-00 is waiting for you. Who's in it? I asked. Just you. She handed me a key. Old brass. Heavy. The tag read, Permanent Resident. The hallway behind her looked endless. Each door was different now. No longer numbered, but named. I saw Jake, Chelsea, Carl, even Victor. One door had my name on it. I passed it, kept walking, until I came to a steel stairwell, lit by red emergency bulbs. I went down, and down, and down, until the numbers on the walls stopped altogether. Until it felt like I wasn't in a building anymore, but somewhere else.
Deeper than us.
Older than time. That's where I found him.
더만 with the chain.
Except now he was waiting. Standing still. His face hidden beneath a shadow that didn't belong in this world. Behind him, a door.
라어지. 스톤.
Etched with symbols. And above it, carved into the frame, the first floor. I finally spoke. What is this place? He didn't answer with words. Just turned. Placed his hand on the door. It creaked open. And I saw everything. The origin. The reason. The design. Skyvale wasn't built on the 13th floor. It was built around it. The building was never a home. It was a trap.
An invitation.
And the elevator was the bait.
Every knock, every whisper, every scream it all came from the core.
From the first floor. A floor below all others.
Older than the blueprints.
Older than the city. It pulls people in.
Lonely people.
Curious people. People who see cracks in reality and can't help but peek through. We were never living in Skyvale. We were being collected. The man pointed toward the threshold.
My name echoed behind me.
Whispered in dozens of voices. Every person who had vanished. Who had screamed. Who had begged. And now, I understood. The 13th floor was never the destination. It was the waiting room. The first floor is the true descent. I could turn back.
I could return to the elevator.
Maybe even go home. But that would mean someone else takes my place.
Someone else steps in.
Someone else gets the knock. And the voice. And the chain. So I stepped forward. Into the door. Into the dark. And for the first time, it stopped whispering. Because it finally had what it wanted. Not a visitor. Not a resident. A keeper. They sealed Skyvale last week. Declared it condemned. The official story is structural instability. Faulty elevators. Too many disappearances. But if you walk past it at night, you might still hear the elevator ding. At 1:13 a.m. And if you're unlucky enough to be near the door when it opens, you'll see the button. 13. Waiting. And if you press it, if you're curious, if you need answers, just remember, the elevator doesn't take you. It asks. And if you say yes, welcome to the first floor. I'll be waiting.